Our standard this time is given a geometric figure and a rotation, reflection, or translation. Draw the transform figure using graph paper. Also, we're going to look at specify a sequence of transformations that will give you a given figure onto another. But this time we're looking at rotations. Okay, there are three different types of transformations. There is a translation, which is a slide, a reflection, which is a flip, and a rotation, which is a turn. You will notice that the blue words were rotated into the slide. Alright, before we start, we need to talk about clockwise and counterclockwise. Your old clocks used to go, the hands go around from left to right. Rotation, that is clockwise. Alright, they turn to the right. Now, that's something we don't see that much anymore and understand that well. So let's see if we can figure out how to tell clockwise from counterclockwise. Alright, you're going to use your right hand and you're going to point it down. Because we turn to the right, so we're using our right hand. You'll notice that as we turn it around, that is clockwise. Use your right hand, put your thumb down, and you rotate it to the right. That is clockwise. Counterclockwise is a turn to the left. We're going to use our left hand. We're going to start with it pointing down. And you'll notice it's going to come up and it's going to go around and it ends up turning to the left. That is counterclockwise. Your left hand is going to give you counterclockwise. All right, let's look a little bit about rotation. We are going to clockwise rotating these figures from the center point. Okay, so we're going to find a center point and we're going to rotate them clockwise. Well, that's over to the right, isn't it? Clockwise is to the right. Notice that the top is yellow, and when we rotate it at a center point, this top turns to the right. 90 degrees rotation there. We're going to do this again from the center point. Again, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. Notice the top is now red. Now it's on the right, isn't it? Okay. When you rotate something clockwise 90 degrees, the top becomes the right. Okay. That's only when you're rotating it from a center point. All right. So we looked at this figure rotating through. It's a rectangle rotating through. Notice that everything changed. The left became the top and the bottom became the left. The top became the right. Everything changes. That is not true with a flip or a translation. Alright, we're going to go through this. This is going to be an example of what you're going to be expected to do with this standard. We're going to be doing it on the Cartesian plane. We're going to do a rotation around the origin counterclockwise by 90 degrees of the pre-image. That's what we're going to do. Well, let's look at our pre-image over there in the right-hand corner. This is the first quadrant. Okay, we are going to rotate it counterclockwise. We're going to go into the second quadrant. Okay, because for some reason the Cartesian plane, it starts in the upper right-hand corner with that being quadrant 1. You rotate it around it counterclockwise, and so we're going to follow the quadrants around 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now look what happens. Alright, first though, let's look at this. Notice that it's 1 away from the x-axis and it's 2 away from the y-axis, isn't it? What's going to happen when we rotate it? Notice the blues at the top. The greens at the top. We're rotating it to the left counterclockwise. Look where the top or the green ends up when I rotate this. 90 degrees There it is. Notice the green, which was the top, is now the left, counterclockwise. But what's really interesting is that it's now 1 away from the y-axis and not the x. And notice it's 2 away from the x-axis. Everything changed, didn't it? Okay. All right. Now, this directions tell us to do a rotation around the origin counterclockwise by 180 degrees of the pre-image. Okay, now I have the image of 90 degrees on there, but they want us to rotate the pre-image around 180. Well, we've already done it 90, and 90 plus 90 is 180. Now watch what happens. Notice that the green is on the left. Where's it going to go? Okay. Notice that you got three going across the top units now, don't you? What happens to it? Shouldn't it go to the left? What color's going to be on the top? Let's check it out. Ooh, look what happened. All right. The blue's on the top now. The green's on the bottom. But what's really interesting, let's go back and review how far away the figure is from the x and y axis. Well, look at over here on the pre-image. You are 1 away from the x-axis. But on the next figure, you're 1 away from the y-axis. And in this new figure, you're back to being 1 away from the x. All right. Let's look at the y-axis on the pre-image. First, you're 2 away from the y-axis, right? But now you're 2 away from the x. And then you're 2 away from the y. Look at the pattern. These are the kind of things you need to be noticing. All right. Let's go 270 degrees from the pre-image, and let's see what that's going to look like. Okay, here it is. We have now rotated the pre-image all the way around from quadrant 1 into 2, then into 3, and then finally into 4. Okay, you can look at, I've listed there how far away the figures are from each of the axes. But this time, let's just look at the green box. It's at the top. Remember, counterclockwise is to the left. Notice it's at the left. Now when we we rotate it again, look at where the green box ends up. And then we're going to rotate it again 90 degrees. Look at where it ends up. Okay? Now, this is what you're going to be expected to do on your EOCT. All right. It's your turn. So let's go get the paper. We're going to work the first problem together at the top of the front page, and then you'll have to do figure 2 all by yourself. All right, you should have your worksheet by now. Okay, figure number 1, question number 1. What is the name of the 4-sided geometric figure? Rectangle, right? Write it down. Question number 2. What are the coordinates of the vertex of the pre-figure? Now the vertexes are just the corners. Alright, so I'm going to start with the pink in that upper right hand corner, or the upper top right vertex. That's 4, 4. Now let's practice this counterclockwise and clockwise. I'm going to go clockwise. That means I'm going around to my right. Well, going around to my right means I need to go down to the blue. I went down. That was a vertical shift. Notice that the y value decreased. I'm continuing around this geometric figure, this rectangle. That means I'm going over to the left, and that is a horizontal shift. What do you think I'm going to switch this time, the x or the y? Yeah, the x. Horizontal is x. I'm going to continue around clockwise. That means I'm going up to the red. I said up. That's vertical. The y changed, didn't it? you probably need to stop the video and write these down. Question number 3. This is going to give us a sequence. It's giving us directions on what we're supposed to be doing. It says rotate the figure clockwise by 90 degrees around the origin. All right. That means we're going to be going to the right. This is clockwise, to the right. If you go clockwise, the top becomes the right. The left becomes the top. Now I want you to notice that the left is 2 away from the y-axis. But the left is going to become the top. So after I get done rotating it, look to see what happens. Oh, the left that was 2 away is now the top, and it's still 2 away. You'll notice the bottom is now the left. It was 1 away, and it's still 1 away. Directions for number 4 and 5. 4 says what are the coordinates of the vertexes of the new image. You're going to need to do that. 5 says compare the coordinates of the new image to the coordinates of the pre-image. You have a graphic organizer. I suggest you stop your video, fill that all out, because when we get to question number 6 and number 7, you're going to need to look at that graphic organizer to answer those questions. So pause your video. Alright, question number 6. When you rotated the pre-image 90 degrees, the what value becomes the what values? Look at your graphic organizer. Didn't the x and y values switch? Now for question number 6, I just decided to say when you rotate a pre-image 90 degrees, the x values become the y value. The x value becomes the y value. I could have said the y becomes the x. It doesn't matter. They switch, don't they? And number 7, when you rotated the image over the x-axis, the what value changes from negative to positive or from positive to negative. Go back and look. Oh, I went over the x-axis and notice that in my pre-image my x value was positive, but when I look at my image, it's now negative. When you go over an axis, whether it's x or y, the negativity of it is going to change. We went over the x-axis this time, the x value changed. Okay, it's your turn to do the problem by yourself. I will read the questions to you. You will probably need to pause the video here and there, but I'm going to read the questions. Okay, number 1. What are the coordinates of the vertexes of the pre-figure? Pause the video and go ahead and put those down. Number 2 says to rotate the figure clockwise 90 degrees. Remember, we're turning it clockwise. Draw your image on your paper. 3. What are the coordinates of the vertex of the new image? 4. Compare the coordinates of the new images to the coordinates of the pre-images. Fill in your graphic organizer. Number 5. When you rotated the pre-image 90 degrees, the what values became the what values? Think about that from the first one. Number 6. When you rotated the pre-image over the y-axis, the what value changed from negative to positive or positive to negative. All right, now we're going to be working on the back sheet. So turn your worksheet over. We're on the back. All right, I'm going to help you with figure 3, and then 4 and 5 you're going to have to do yourself. This time we got a sequence of rotation we're going to have to figure out. In other words, you're going to be given the pre-image and the image, and you're going to tell me the directions. That's what they mean by sequence. Question number 1. The image is in the what quadrant? Go look over there. The image, it's in the first quadrant. Good. Number 2, the pre-image is in what quadrant? Remember, we go counterclockwise. Pre-image is in the fourth quadrant. Number 3, if the pre-image is rotated clockwise around the origin, how many degrees was it rotated? Now that's going to your right. Okay, around. Think about this. What's it going to look like? How many degrees will we have to go? It's going to the right. Okay? And we went over 1, 2, 3 axes. This is how I figure it out. Every time I go over an axis, it is another 90 degrees. So I'm going to go 3 times 90, and I get 270. Number 4. If the pre-image is rotated counterclockwise around, how many degrees was it rotated? That's to the left. Think about your left hand and what it's doing. Notice it's going that way. How many times did I go across an axis? Only 1 time. So therefore it is 90 degrees. All right? I'm going to read questions for figure 4 and for figure 5, but you're going to have to come up with the answers. All right, I will read the questions, but you have to provide the answer. Number 1, the image is in the what quadrant? Number 2, the pre-image is in which quadrant? Number 3, if the pre-image is rotated around the origin, how many degrees was it rotated? This is clockwise. Number 4, if the pre-image is rotated counterclockwise around the origin, how many degrees was it rotated? Figure 5. Number 1, the image is in blank quadrant. Number 2, the pre-image is in blank quadrant. Be careful, get the images, not the little blobs that go with them. Number 3, if the pre-image is rotated clockwise around the origin, how many degrees was it rotated? Number 4, if the pre-image is rotated counterclockwise around the origin, how many degrees was it rotated? Okay, let's review some things. Clockwise rotation is around to the right, okay, like the old-fashioned clocks. Counterclockwise is to the left. Okay, those are some things you need to know to do this unit properly. Also, it doesn't matter if you rotate it clockwise, there goes the girl, or you rotate it counterclockwise. Notice when I rotated those two students, Everything changed when you rotated them. We're done now. Turn in your paper to your teacher.